And good morning. If you're just joining us, we are on chapters 9 and 10 of 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. We were just saying how it just keeps getting better and better. Good morning, Miss Sheila. See, Marge is getting ready to leave for convention tomorrow, or not, today's Saturday, tomorrow is Sunday. So she's halfway there.
What's that?
You're halfway there.
I know, right? That's what it felt like.
Yes, it's all good. It's all good. So we're going to start with the law of the ladder. Achievement to most people is something you do. To the high achiever, it is something you are.
That was a really, really good story.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just even thought of it in perspective of society in today's day and age, and how people label someone who fails.
Mm-hmm.
But do they really fail? If they get back up again and do something else again, are they failing? They're only failing if they don't try again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and this poor guy just kept on going.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yep. And I loved it. And, you know, this has actually been something that has been spinning around in my brain for the last little bit about successful people. And I've talked about this before, so obviously it's been spinning around there for a little while. There are people that you perceive in your community or in the circles that you're with, or maybe on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and you look at them and you're like, wow, they've got it. They've got that something, that special something that seems to set them apart from everybody else. And I think that this is just the general unpacking of what that actually is. Because if this guy, if Jerry would have stopped at his first business, he would have been that mediocre or that average person, right? And it was only because he kept getting back up again and kept getting back up again and fine-tuning and changing and taking opportunities and seeking counsel and all of that stuff, that he became as successful as he was. On page 141. And yeah, please, guys, pop in and just talk.
That list?
I just wanted, before we get to the list, it says, he's talking about where groups encouraged to set a time to meet each week, blah, blah, blah. The piece that just really stuck out to me was commit to taking specific action to change and improve. Because we can meet every week here, and we can talk about these amazing books, and we can pick everything apart. But unless there's a commitment to follow up, a commitment to actually change or to put into action what we've read, then we slide back into that concept that Marge talked about, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, that Kristen Abart always talks about becoming a personal growth glutton. And all you do is you seek out the personal growth, but you do nothing with it.
You keep reading, you keep watching, and you keep telling other people. But what really matters is the footsteps, right? And it's even sometimes, I know that I've read a book and I'm like, not sure if I can get behind that. Maybe it's just because at that point in time in your life, your personal growth isn't ready for that concept. And then all of a sudden you find yourself possibly a year later, and it's like, whoa, this makes complete sense. Now you're there, right?
I remember when I started Plexus, everybody was talking about the book, The Magic of Thinking Big. I tried and I tried and I tried to read that book, but my personal growth level was so low, it just was not clicking. It took me another 2 years later before I could finally read it and get something good out of it.
Isn't that interesting, hey? And Marge and I, again, Marge and I talk a lot, and we do a lot of, like, unpacking of brains. And we were talking about how sometimes it takes some people, like, months to hit diamond. And then there are people who are trudging along at 5, 6, 7 years, and they haven't hit diamond yet. And they're pulling out their hair going, why can Celeste Gwynn do it? You know what? Honestly, I had a moment. Celeste Gwynn, I love her. She shared on her Instagram page a picture of her first convention. Do you know what her first convention was? My first convention.
2016, right?
Mm-hmm.
What?
I know. And I was going to say that I think that was the year, did she not, or was it the next year that she rented out?
Yes, in Vegas.
It was in Vegas, but I don't remember if it was 2016 or 2017. She rented out the roller coaster. Yeah, that's my sign for roller coaster today. For her team for an hour. So if you want to like have a check yourself moment, you're like, oh yeah, okay. So apparently somebody else's growth level and their level of influence was slightly higher than mine. And it doesn't mean that I'm lesser of a person or that I don't have the same value to give. Are you guys okay over there?
We're laughing. Maisie is just, usually makes us laugh. She fell out of the bed.
Oh dear.
Her expression was priceless. But it's true.
Anyway.
Very, very true, because if you think of level of influence, imagine the market that she must have had of influential people as well, because her level was that much higher.
Yeah.
And she had already given away most of her market.
Yeah. She'd already given up. That's the kicker here, right? She had already given away to her friend Jen, who is her sponsor. Anybody in the first year who had come her way who was interested in Plexus. She'd already given away all those easy people. So when she started, she didn't have like that hot market that you start with, the people who will buy dirt from you. She didn't have all those people. That's just a little tidbit for you. Not that I'm comparing. It just was a moment where I was like, okay, you know what? I obviously have some more growing to do. I have some more influencing to do. I need to build more of that. So, yeah. It's always one of those moments, not one of those. Like, not as easy to wag your finger at yourself. Anyway, I thought that the subjects that they talked about were incredible.
I found the concept really interesting that they actually took, and it's something we talked about last night coming here. They actually took what their knowledge and their basics of their business was out of the country. It didn't fly in their own country.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's so interesting that we see that so often, because like they went to Guatemala, they went to the hard places, right? That whole La Red was established in Guatemala. And then they went to Colombia. Like, that's mind-blowing.
Do you think that when he started, okay, so if you go back and you read what he started in again, right? He was selling tools that were made in Japan. Do you think that when he started selling tools, he had any concept that he was going to be going into Colombian prisons to teach the guards how to lead, which would then affect the inmates, which would then affect the country? Like, talk about, again, and I mean, I'll just, apparently there's no division between the two chapters here for me, but talk about the law of the rubber band. If he hadn't allowed himself to be stretched.
Mm-hmm. And if he had given up for the fact that his company didn't fly in the US, he just went elsewhere. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I love the page 143. They estimate more than 1 million people have been trained in a foundation of value-based principles. And that's important because character growth determines the height of your personal growth. And without personal growth, you can never reach your potential.
Absolutely.
But, that's just the bare basics foundation of the whole thing, that every person is standing on their own platform, and that platform you have been building all your life. And the market that you're surrounded with is based on what your platform is going to be looking like. Mm-hmm. I had a friend, a sideline, the other day. She just got her Lexus, and she shared in a chat that I've had it for 3 weeks and I have no idea how to share it on Facebook. I just can't hit post. Why? Because her market didn't agree with what she was doing. You know?
Can we just take a second for that? Anybody listen to Abby Kappa this week?
I haven't yet.
Okay, so she talked about posting to attract the people you want on your team. And I think that this is part of this. Now, and I mean, yeah, maybe her market didn't agree with her Lexus, but I also wonder if that isn't just a personal thing where she was afraid to,
yeah,
right?
She's still appeasing to that market, even if they're never going to help her grow.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Don't be afraid to be slightly controversial. And I'm not saying get online and start airing dirty laundry. That's not what I'm saying. Don't be afraid to build your business the way that you want to build your business. Don't be afraid to try to attract those people. Your business does not need to be attractive to everybody, because maybe you don't want Sam from down the street who has 3 very large, loud dogs that are chained up in his yard every day and night, who has a garbage piled up to the ceiling. You can see it through his windows. Maybe Sam isn't your person that you want leading on your team. And he can maybe use the products and that's great, but maybe you're not going to post to Sam. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You're going to want to post. I want to post to somebody like Carrie.
But that also goes right back to the character.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your character is never going to lie. It's just who you are.
Yeah, totally. And then we are talking about honesty. Quality that's most admired.
Go ahead.
A quality that's most admired in leaders is honesty. And I think sometimes as leaders, it can be difficult to choose the right balance between transparency, which is good, and not oversharing with your team. You always want to be honest and upfront, but there's still an amount that we need to, as leaders, kind of keep. Mm-hmm. Can you help me unpack that a little bit? My brain is still really foggy.
It's likely because of the fact that if you are further ahead in the road and there's things that are coming for them that they might not be aware of yet and they might not be ready for yet. There's things that a diamond team does that I am not doing yet. I'm not there yet, you know? And some of those things, when I see them, when I hear them, I'm like, but that's okay because I'll grow there, right? And so as a silver, looking at what I do with an emerald team, they're like, deer in the headlights. You don't have to. You work where you're at. You deal very honestly with what they need at the place that they're at for their business. Yeah. Right? So some of the things don't need to be unpacked for them at the time because you're helping them for the level of where they're at.
Yeah. Don't let yourself fall into the trap that, I just need to be completely open and honest with everybody and air my dirty laundry with no, please.
And you know what? In fact, with that being said, we have a lot of diamond uplines. We say this all the time, I know, but we're in of the strongest string of diamonds probably in most all of Plexus. Mm-hmm. And we can go all the way up to like Sonia and Helen and then Elizabeth Spohn. And there's a couple there in the middle that didn't take it all the way to the top, and the rest are all diamonds. That's our foundation. Right? And it's incredible how strong that tree has built. And so when those women talk about, why is she doing that and that and that, and she's only a gold team? She shouldn't be doing that. She should be going and recruiting and sponsoring. People like I listen because you know why? Because what they have done has been and proven to be extremely successful because it has duplicated so many times. It's diamond. There's like multiple diamond couple families in there, right? There's even Andrew, there's Kristen and Jarrett, and there's Andrew or Amber and Justin and Cole. They're all diamond couples, right? Double diamond couples.
Well, and then you look at what they've duplicated on their sidelines. We've got Brenda and Delvin. We've got Wendy and Josh, and he's an emerald, right?
Yeah.
Like.
And so the thing of being honest is a really admirable concept, but be honest with what they need at that time.
Yeah, there's a difference between honesty and venting.
Yes.
This is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Okay, so over the page on 144, this is hard to swallow. Anybody else? 99% of leadership failures are failures of character. So are 99% of all other failures. Most people focus too much on competence and too little on character. How frequently do people fail to grow not because they didn't have time to read helpful books, but because they chose to spend their time and money on something else that was less worthwhile?
Ouch! That hurt.
It does kind of hurt.
Because you know what? You hear so often, I think of Fallon.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and Fallon's the reason that we're reading this book anyway, because that's who I got the title of the book from to begin with.
The whole, how many times do people get a lower grade on test than they could because they didn't study as much as they should have?
Mm-hmm.
Like that is like always, you know, like especially when you think of high school. Oh, I don't want to study, all those times in life, and you take those habits with you, right? And so growing a business, it's so easy to sit down and do more IPA than to say, no, I'm gonna at least pick apart 2 chapters tonight. Mm-hmm. Whereas IPA feels like action.
Yeah.
You can talk to 1 million people, and if your character isn't ready to serve and bring those people in, and you haven't done the personal growth, mm-hmm. and you're throwing 500 messages out and nobody's opening them, wouldn't you rather take this and kind of pick it apart and see if there's something that you're missing? Mm-hmm. You know, and I'm speaking completely to myself as well. Like,
see, I would be the opposite. I would be stuck on all the books and not do the action. I would end up being the glutton. So I have to tell myself to not do as much reading and maybe do a little bit more action. So I find that maybe I'm a little bit more of the opposite side of the spectrum on that.
Well, and it's kind of like, I think I shared it last week, that one of the business coaches that I met with told me that I need to stop thinking and I need to do. So I do first for half an hour, and then I can give myself half an hour of thinking. Because I can, just like you can get lost in the growth books. I can get lost in the thought processes and the why and the how and all the different things that could happen. And then I tangle myself up and the action gets stunted. The other piece of this is, yes, there are some people who have skyrocketed to jewel status or to whatever status that you're looking at as that's where I want to be, because they have done some action and they've signed somebody who is, their leadership ability is like way, way, way high. Okay. So, I mean, that's a great idea for all of us. We'd like, yeah, hey, you know what? I'd love to have a running mate who would be really, wanting to work this just like me. What happens though, if you sign somebody who has huge potential, they latch onto it, they start running, and you're going, oh shoot, this is great. But now I need to make sure, if I want to go with that person, I need to make sure that I'm doing the right actions to keep me going along with them. Because I love our company. It's designed so that people can get past. You can always make it up and go back to where you are. And this, I don't want to get too much into our comp plan, but it's really important that you have your correct structure. And so we've seen it happen oftentimes where somebody signs up a rock star, and that rock star starts going, and that person doesn't have the qualifications in their outside legs in order to go emerald, sapphire, whatever. They have the actual points in their organization. What a sad day that would be to sit there and look at your points and be like, wow, look at that. I have 3,000 points in my organization. I do not have the required number of points in my outside legs. It's all coming from that one taproot, right?
Way more common than what you ever think that it would be, you know? And that is because of the imbalance of leadership qualities completely.
So that's why personal growth and action of the personal growth is so important, is you will sign that person and then you'll be able to work alongside them. Amy, what were you going to say?
that it's also really important to give that person additional support above you, so that when they're hitting stumbling blocks that you're like, I never seen that, that's never happened to me, because it really has never happened to you, that you've got someone above Janelle and Marge and Eva to say, oh yeah, oh here's this, you just go like this.
Yeah, good point.
And that is also cultural, because we have all seen teams that have not shared their downline and not.
Yeah, and it's super sad. I always feel sad for those people.
Well, it's so not plexus.
No.
Not at all. Right?
So then you're allowing your limited growth to limit other people's potential.
Absolutely. It's your insecurities that keeps you hiding your team.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to Wendy Larson when she gets started on this topic. She fires right up. And I tell you, like, that woman does, like, that's something she brings out into the open. And she says, if you hide your team, it's a much bigger reflection of you yourself than anyone anywhere. Yeah. And if you feel that you can't add people to a team group because it's too big, they'll get lost, then you get out of there. She's
there.
Yeah. And it works. It works really well, because you know, it's the loud insecurities that need silencing, right? And it's the people that have the loud insecurities that do those kinds of actions.
Yeah. Even simple things like 3-way chats or 4-way chats or whatever. I have some people in part of my downline that are amazing at doing these chats, and there's a whole bunch of us connected, and we actually have relationships. And so now I can go talk to somebody who's 4 levels down from me, because I see their names pop up weekly, and they see they see me in there. I might just check in and, leave a heart or tell them they're doing a great job or whatever, but I have some sort of relationship built with them so that I can go in and be like, hey, I noticed that all of a sudden your sub got turned off. What's going on? How can we help you? Right? Instead of just this person coming out from nowhere trying to come in and help, and they're like, I don't know who you are. It's a gift to you. It's a gift to your downline.
Absolutely.
Okay, rungs on my character ladder. I didn't start my timer. Oh gosh.
The inside then the outside character matters. Those points are huge. There's so much there.
Yeah.
And it all goes back again to the Proverbs writer noted that as we think in our hearts, so we become. It's always that foundation, right?
Yeah.
And then taking it forward on 146, in other words, before you can do, you must be. So often we try the do before we are the be, right?
Mm-hmm.
The right motions outwardly with the wrong motives inwardly will not bring lasting progress. And right outward talking with wrong inward thinking will not bring lasting success. Mm-hmm. That is just so incredibly obvious in Plexus. It's doing all the actions, but the inside isn't ready and developed, right? It's that I'm sending 1,000 messages, nobody's responding. Maybe it's something that you're not saying. Maybe it's something that you're not doing. And he actually talks about that yet.
Yeah.
Well, moving ahead, he also talked about that teenage star. What was his life?
Realionaire is the book that Farrah Gray.
Yes.
Anybody else's book look like this week?
Yes.
I was like, cannot stop highlighting all the things.
And it's so common, right? He talked about teenage movie stars and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Money without a strong character foundation can lead not to success, but to ruin. And I think we can take a second for that, because some people, I had somebody ask me, and I can't remember what the context was. Aren't you worried about, I was talking about how the company progresses. It's not somebody in Plexus. Aren't you worried about, how that might change you if you have money? And I'm like, Eva always says that the selfish people will become more selfish and generous people will become more generous.
I don't know why that's even a fear that people even talk about. Like, I feel like if that's something that you're entertaining in your mind, then you would probably be the one that would be Go ahead, Amy.
Sorry, I can actually help you with that.
Please.
So what it is they have been deceived. So they watched somebody else who they thought had good character and who they thought they admired changed by money, situation, all those sorts of things. And that caught them off guard.
Yeah.
And limits them that way.
It can also be a scarcity mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if this falls into a scarcity mindset, but it can be somebody who really struggles with where they're at in life and just staying in that mediocre, not being willing to be stretched, to grow, to do those things that could bring in an income like that, but seeing somebody else who has the income, and maybe that person is stewarding it fine, but that person just has a really crummy attitude about somebody else's ability to make more money. And none of those things are any of your business.
I want to get into that rubber band chapter. I
do too. Okay, can we get there? Hold on. I love this. Life is not a box of chocolates. It's more like a jar of jalapenos. What we do today might burn our butts tomorrow. Thought that was really funny.
I love the JF Kennedy thing that he had on the bottom of 149. He kept a small plaque in the White House with the inscription, "Oh God, thy sea is so great and my boat is so small." That's perspective. Doesn't matter who you are, but that is perspective, right?
Yeah.
And recognize that everyone has weaknesses. There's so many other people that he quotes, and I feel like that brings so much of the wisdom to him because he's using all these different authors that have such, huge, impactful points that drive his point home. Being teachable, like we just talk about that a little bit because that is such a big part of growing a team. We will often act upon what we're feeling, and the feelings are what create our motivation. And be it that it might not be any motivation because maybe you're not feeling it. But if you're going to be coachable and if you're going to be open to the fact that I need to grow and I need to learn, and there's people ahead of me that have been through some really hard learning phases, and maybe I will have to as well, I'm going to have to really lay aside my feelings and open my mind and see if I can grasp this concept of what I need to do. That's being coachable. And then when you hear someone tell you something, this is what you need to do, and everything in you says, that is not what I want to do. That is probably exactly what you should be doing. Experience. But that is like just such a huge part of being able to grow in your character as well, is to be coachable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Putting others first right sizes our egos in perspective. Love that. Talking about gratitude, I mean, I think I love the focus that in general, I want to say society, but if you have a growth mentality and you're out there looking for things that support a growth mentality, there's a huge culture of gratitude happening right now. And I think we just need more and more of that. And the idea that gratitude is acknowledging that someone did something for me that I could not do for myself. Gratitude expresses our vulnerability, our dependence on others. I remember somebody saying, never ever be angry with your team. Right? It's not ever something to do. They are something to be incredibly grateful for, because without supporting a team, but without them reflecting back with orders and sponsoring and all of those different things, we can only be so much.
Yeah. Those who drink the water must remember who dug the well. Love that. Is so important. That's such a huge thing, right? We take so much for granted. And I thought of the fact that, again, I'm going to go back to our uplines, because I feel like the more that we get into bigger teams and the more I see of what, and especially this is something that I was really, really immersed in when we opened Canada. And I was a part of, being able to do that whole launch and being, working with Sheila Medina and just able to hear of what they had built with what they had had. They had no training. They had no books. The pink drink packet didn't even have a name on it.
Slim, just a little white package.
And, you know, like just the whole thing, they had Coach and Tammy and Sheila drove in a car for like days and took turns doing events. And all they had was people feeling better. People were desperate to feel better, right? And just how she talks when she shares of what is all there now and the excuses that she hears. You know, I have a huge respect for someone that built something out of nothing. And then if we have this, you know, our teams, I'm in the Jewel group as well, and there is just an overabundance of 7-day training, of 5-day events, of everything that you can think of that anyone, all the ingredients for the cake is there, but hardly anyone is baking the cake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why? It's too easy.
I had somebody tell me this week that they needed to stop doing what they were doing and start learning a little bit more about the product. And I said, do you know who Sheila Medina is? The first diamond in Plexus. She's the one who blazed the trail. Did you know she could not tell you what the ingredients are for Slim and what they do, other than the fact that they make her feel better? If she can build literally the entire company on that, I'd say you probably don't need to know less. You just need to share more.
And again, I just thought of like so many years, every diamond team that grew from that brought a little bit more, and they brought a little bit more, and the company put in. Look at what Plexus is doing now. They're doing power hours. They're doing all these events, and we can tune in, at the tap of a finger pretty much at any time when it conveniences us. And I feel like we have more excuses now than ever before. Mm-hmm. And it's like the need and the want and the why has to be strong enough within yourself in order to understand of what you actually hold. Mm-hmm. And once you understand of what you actually hold and the impact that you can be for someone else, not just selfishly thinking of where you're going, but the people that are waiting. Mm-hmm. And when you see the concept of the people that are waiting, I think then we're going to start appreciating what we have.
Absolutely. I want to touch on this really quick, and then I think maybe we could move on to the rubber band. This really stuck with me the first time I read this. Bottom of page 153. Some people are born mud and they remain mud. Sadly, some are born marble and die mud. Some are born mud, dream of marble, but remain mud. But many persons of high character have been born mud and died marble. I tried to explain that out of context to my husband. He had no concept what I was talking about. I was like, you need to read the book. Just go read the book. But yeah, like I don't think any of us wants to be on the last day of our lives and look back and go, gee, if I would have only. Right? And I mean, that's going to look different for all of us. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that just, it so hits home for me.
And you see it all the time. All the time.
Yeah. We are born with such potential. And that actually goes right into the law of the rubber band. God's gift to us is potential. Our gift to God is developing it. How do we do that? By getting out of our comfort zone, by continually stretching, not only physically, but also mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Life begins at the end of our comfort zone. We go there by stretching.
Boom. That whole thing of growth stops when you lose the tension between where you are and where you could be. That is, to me, that's extremely visual. It's like standing in the middle of the rubber band where there's no tension around anything. You're just standing right in the middle and choosing to stay there, right? Mm-hmm. And then when the fact that he uses the word, only a mediocre person is always at his best.
Yeah, that one was a little bit convicting to me. Because, you know, I think all of us try to put our best foot forward and we try. But again, back to the whole finding people who are sorry guys, I'm battling something and it's honestly eating my brain. So just excuse me. You see people who are influencers, right? Again, what I was talking about before. And you go, how did they get to be where they are? Well, they did not always show their best, right? Do you know what I mean? They weren't just, I'm always going to be at my best. I'm always going to be at my best, right? Like I'm always going to have the face on, and I'm always going to have the hair, and I'm always going to wear the shoes, and I'm always going to show up on time, and I'm always like, you're steady Eddie all the time. You're never rocking the boat, but you're also never stretching and growing.
Mm-hmm. There's so much that he, by his own example, is the best example of living in a stretched mode, right? Like just the things that he has accomplished. And even when he talks about when he turned 60, he was actually going to slow down.
Yeah, I can't imagine that. I don't.
Yeah, how he has worked, right? And he just couldn't, because he was ready to accept the challenge.
And I love that he talks about, on the top of 158, that when he started teaching leadership, nobody in his profession was talking about it, which is so backwards because, and I just actually I was at a seniors camp yesterday, and the talk was on leadership and how Moses was a leader. And it was really, really interesting. Because when I think I put this book out there that I was going to do this book study or something like that. And one of my friends private messaged me and was like, be really, really careful of John Maxwell and blah, 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 blah. It was exactly what was at the end of that paragraph. And I was like, yep. And I just kind of went, it's okay. I've got discernment. I'll be fine. It's going to be okay. But people are afraid. It's fear, right? It's fear of what would happen if they dug into something like this, what changes they would be inspired to make, and that they would be faced with them having to say to themselves, no, I'm not worth it. No, I don't want to change. No, that's not me.
Carefully lifting the lid of their box that they have isolated themselves in, and it's nice and comfy in there, and nobody should open the lid to ruffle the feathers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's sad. That just, speaks of not living to your potential, right?
Absolutely.
And then even just to, like he focused on teaching leadership and then to communicate internationally. I can't imagine how hard that must have been.
Mm-hmm.
And then cross over to a new audience where he went into the business world, right? Very different from being a pastoral leader and teaching leadership in a church. And again, he just stepped out to do it, right? And then comes the building a legacy. And I feel like that's probably a large part of what Plexus is doing, always trying to stay a little bit ahead to see what's going to be coming, to work into that new market, to see of what's on the horizon, to make sure that they've prepared well, that they are trained well. Even when I know like Canada isn't getting the hemp oil yet, but I'm in several different chats where there's some pretty big health gurus, and they're picking apart the reasons of why Plexus chose the hemp isolate. It is mind-blowing, guys. It is incredible. Like,
anytime Plexus does something, you think it's great on the surface, and then you start digging and you're like, right? Like, it looks great on the surface, and then you find out more. And you got to start following. If you guys aren't following Wendy Larson, Ricky James, Ame Darling, it's spelled like Amy, Aimee, Darling. Who else?
Shoshana
Eastling.
Jessica Hogendorn.
Yeah, Jessica Hogendorn. And you watch when a new product is released and you see what starts buzzing around on their feeds and what they start sharing and how they start getting crazy excited. That's fun. That's super fun.
And just the whole thing of that they're attracting these kinds of people. There's a movement out there that is really, really becoming evident, and people want answers. People want solutions, right?
And simple solutions.
Yes. And the fact that, Plexus focuses on root issues. I signed a doctor last month that is doing hyperbaric pressure, some natural treatment as well, bringing
I was going to try to say that too, but I don't think I can.
I'm not sure if I even said it right.
Hyperbaric?
I'm not sure. Not sure. The biggest thing she was asking me when we got started with talking with the products is, why, when I take these ingredients individually, do I not get the same results as when they have put them together? I know, right? It's the synergy. Yes, that's the synergy. See, Amy?
and the fact that Plexus had the foresight, and these things are developed not just in some other lab somewhere. We have scientists in Plexus who work to develop this stuff, and it's so brilliant. And I was just going to say, with the hemp oil stuff, yes, again, we're talking Canadians. I think mostly you're on this call, but
it'll come from.
But talk about a rubber band moment, right? There are going to be some people that aren't going to be willing to be stretched.
Yeah.
They're not.
And there is, because there's such a misconception. Maybe I should just go into this for a little bit.
Okay.
There's such a misconception between hemp oil, marijuana, THC, all those things, right? And I feel like we as society have been largely deceived because of what the drug world has made marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we really back up all the way and just go right back to the original plant,
mm-hmm.
and the capabilities of what that plant has, and then to pick it apart of how they have isolated the CBD, the hemp isolate, and what that can do for the body, the endocannabinoid system, right? And that's something that Ricky James has been she's all over this. And guys, if you know Ricky, she's very passionate. And for the past 10 years, she has been studying CBD. And she's extremely particular as to what and what form, how it's done, how it's made. And she said when she heard that they were choosing hemp isolate, she cried, because it's what she had been, focusing on for such a long time.
So can I just speak credentially for this gal for just a second? Because she doesn't have a paper to her name, this girl. She has been asked to come and speak to physicians, groups of dental physicians, to educate them on what she knows because of how hungry she is to research and how she understands things and how she can explain them. So no, she doesn't have a degree. She might as well have about 10. So when she says something, people listen. I just had to say that because I just think that that's so cool.
It is. Okay,
so that gets back to synergy and leadership, and how we were talking about earlier, how he takes these quotes from other people and uses them to amplify his point.
Exactly.
And oddly enough, it's all third-party validation, right? Why do we question this? He uses it all the time. The other thing that I think is amazing, how many times have you guys picked out when he has actually quoted somebody from network marketing? He does it all the time. And he's currently working on a book that is just about network marketing.
Lots of Jim Rohn.
He believes so firmly in network marketing. Why is the world still questioning it if the utmost authority on leadership of our time talks about it like it's the thing, right? Same thing with Dave Ramsey. Huge financial guru and brilliant mind. Talks about if he had to start all over again, he would find a good network marketing company and start from the bottom and go all the way to the top.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. This was super sad. And Sheila, if you were still in the room, you and I both just had a brain moment where it exploded. bottom of 161, a third of high school graduates never read another book for the rest of their lives, and 42% of college graduates similarly never read another book after college. Only 32% of the US population has ever been in a bookstore. I'm like, how is that even possible?
But what do you know? Do you want me to tell you how? Read that average list. That's how.
Mm-hmm.
When you go into average is what the failures claim to be when their family and friends ask them why they are not more successful. You know, average is the top of the bottom, the best of the worst, the bottom of the top, the worst of the best. Which one of these are you?
Mm-hmm.
Average means being run-of-the-mill, mediocre, insignificant. Like, so I would have not been able to unpack average that often. Like, I read a lot of this out loud yesterday when we were traveling because, I don't know, me and John both enjoy John Maxwell a lot. And I love the fact that he writes the books pretty much exactly the way that he speaks. And when you have heard him speak, you hear him talking to you when you read the book. And so
I agree. Don't you find that though of other authors? I've got another favorite author that I heard her speak before I read any of her books. And now I can just hear her talk through her. Because she says things like, she talks to you and she says, dear one. She talks to you like that. But she actually speaks that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it.
But the whole thing of falling into the average category, I'm going to go here a little bit. I don't know if you guys are familiar with where I live, but it's a large cultural Mennonite community, and they moved there, I don't even know what year frame. I just remember my grandma was a little girl, and they all immigrated from Russia, came over to Saskatchewan, and then they were asked to populize Alberta, right? And they got squatting rights, they got homesteads if they would be able to make that land productive. Well, these people had left so much and they had been running for so long, they were in fear of losing it again. So they've created a large mindset of don't leave. It's you, what you have here is what you have to keep. Don't ever leave, you know? And so there's a large fear of pushing past change. Change is not looked at well. Very often the saying is, well, let's just keep it the way that we've always done it. How mediocre is that, right? And it's extremely cultural in our community. They are so scared of change that you can tell that each generation has their own set of, I don't know, it's almost like the issues grow instead of getting less, right? And this average category, I just immediately thought of that whole group of people. That's what happens when you don't want to change, when you fall into the whole fear of changing, don't grow, don't do anything different. Let's just do exactly what we've always done. That way we know what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
That's sad.
It is.
That's sad.
I actually want to pick on Carrie for a second, if I can. I'm not picking on you. So Carrie has a sweet friend who's like her best friend, who happens to be a motivational speaker and author and whatever. And this person has grown through the community. I knew her years ago. She used to run a tuxedo shop, and she just had, her name's Darcy. She's just this teeny little woman with this huge personality, and everybody knows her in Regina. And so she just kept growing. But Carrie, what is it like to be the best friend of somebody who is constantly stretching their rubber band?
You know what? It's fantastic because we're open to new ideas. So we're always growing. And there's also always ideas that we're sharing with each other, for especially women, empowering women. That's something that's really important to both of us. And Darcy's just releasing her next book. It just went to the printers last week. So always sharing and talking about ideas about how we can empower women, support each other. And everywhere we go, people know her, which is really great. And how she builds into everybody, and she builds into me, and I build into her. And that's really important as well. And that's what people say. You have a best friend who is a motivational speaker. How cool is that? I'm like, that's super cool as well. But she needs somebody to build her up too. And so we feed off of each other. That safe place, because yes, her thing is focus on the 90%, but there's that 10% that you need that safe place to work through. And that's where our friendship is so powerful. And we together that synergy creates some very, very special things.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that you said that she needs someone too.
Mm-hmm.
I think often we forget about that. We forget about that part because we elevate them. Look at what they've all accomplished. Look at how much they're stretching. Look at what they're accomplishing with moving forward. But they still need to have that safe place to fall back on.
That's right. Absolutely.
Grown past being human.
Yeah.
Grow past being just a human. God created us as humans. We have fears, thoughts, failures. We still always need somebody else.
That's right.
Yeah. I had a moment, like, I don't know if it was 3 weeks ago, and I texted one of my good friends who's not in Plexus, and I'm like, okay, I know how dumb this sounds. Prefacing, I know how stupid this sounds, but I just need a minute. And then I'll be fine. And then I went through a whole list of things that I was complaining about, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. I know that these are stupid first world problems, but I just needed to get them out of my brain. And yeah, I get it. They're dumb, and I'm over it.
Yeah, it's okay. That's a type of therapy, maybe, Janelle. See, there you go.
Yeah, and she's a real cheap therapist. I pay her in nights that she comes and stays over at my house.
Perfect.
No, but it's the same thing, right? That you go both ways. My best friend happens to be a pastor's wife, right? Like, that's another one of those areas. But what I was going to say to you, Carrie, is do you think that if you hadn't had the that growth mentality or the desire to change and be stretched and to implement those things, do you think that your friendship would be the same with Darcy as it is now?
No, absolutely not, for sure, because I would be stuck. I would get to a place where I would be stuck, and she was going to be continuing to grow, and we would have then taken different paths in my mind, right? Mm-hmm. And so we inspire each other to grow and to learn, and then also to share. And that's really important. You know, some people discover really cool things and they keep them to themselves. But with us and our friendship, we want to build each other up. And so we're growing. Where we were, I mean, we've been best friends for 18 years. And so where we were 18 years ago in our lives and what we do and where we are now, if you sit back and reflect, we've grown together, and we've grown a lot in those 18 years, which is great because I think we're stronger women today. And that empowering women is something that's really bubbling up for me, women supporting women, and for her as well. And with this new women's book, we talk about this a lot, and the launch is coming soon. So it's going to be even more powerful. And that's how one way we can serve others, and especially in this community of women, which is so powerful.
Yeah, for sure. I know we need to get going on the rest of this because this is just so deep. But I also loved when you told me that you phoned her about when your dog, she's got a 1-year-old dog, and the dog did some damage to something that was very important to Carrie. And can you just like quickly tell us about that and what Darcy said to you?
Is it about the pillows?
Yeah. So the dog shredded, like, she's got this awesome yard set up. She went away. She comes home. The dog has decimated one of her cushions off of her patio furniture. Like, she gone. It's gone. And she was so mad. Do you remember what Darcy said to you? Maybe it just stuck in my mind.
Okay, tell the story then, because I'm like, I remember going out and I was so mad, and I don't usually get mad, but that day that I was upset.
Yeah, and you were super mad at your dog and like just seething. And she's talking to Darcy, and Darcy's like, hey, but remember, we don't focus on the 10% of our pets. We only focus on the 90%. And it's one of those things where it's like, real life application. That's what I thought anyway. It's like,
yeah, for sure. And you're
angry. You messed up my pretty furniture.
I can really relate.
Anyway.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Okay.
On.
It's true that being in your comfort zone may feel good, but it leads to mediocrity and therefore dissatisfaction. Again, we can talk about living in that 10% with the dog eating the cushion, and that can be like an entire weekend. And that would be average. That would be regular people. And you would be very dissatisfied. But 10%, and moving on.
I went and got that cushion fixed half an hour after it happened, just because I wasn't going to stew on it all day. So I took action, and I'm like, okay, it may have cost me money, but I'm going to have a beautiful cushion and my yard is going to be beautiful again. And so that's what I did.
I love it.
The whole number 5, stretching sets you apart from others. And I think this is probably something that paralyzes a lot of people. They start seeing their need to grow, and then they start stepping out, they start stretching their rubber band, and then all of a sudden the little community that they have in the middle of the mediocre rubber band tell them, oh, what are you doing? No way, come back here. We're all going to leave you if you keep stretching. And then they fall back because, ooh, that was scary. Let's not go there again. And then they remain mediocre because of what? Because of the little circle that they have created within the middle of their rubber band, right? And I think a person really has to see and understand that as you're growing, it's okay to leave some people behind. It doesn't mean that you don't care for them, but it means that you're growing. And you know what happens? Most of the time they'll catch up sometime or, sooner or later.
I actually stole a post from Marge from her stories the other day, and I posted it on my own wall. Today, so many people from your past know a version of you who no longer exists. And we give far too much space for those people, and we just need to let that go. Because if they're not where you're going, then they're not part of your future, and they don't need to take up any space.
She has a lot to share too.
Hi, Miss Maisie.
Can you say hi?
I love this. It's never too late to be what you might have been.
Yes.
Do love that. Bottom of page 167, improving yourself is the best way to help your team. Successful people set themselves apart because they initiate the improvement others need. When you get better, those around you benefit. Excellence has the potential to spread in the same way mediocrity does.
And that's where I feel like it's really, really important that when you're doing something, that you actually tell your team that you're doing it. Right? I'm going to be doing this. I'm super scared. I have no idea how this is going to pan out. I'm seeing an opportunity. I don't know if it's going to work, but guys, this is where we're going. Who wants to come with me? Right? And power is in the numbers. Like if you alone are stretching your rubber band, it might not pull very far, but when you've got a whole team behind you and they're all pulling with you, you're going to make a much bigger impact, right? Stretching can become a lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that.
I do like this too, and I have to talk about this quickly. Bottom of 168, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I'm not where I want to be, but I'm not what I used to be. I haven't learned how to arrive. I've just learned how to keep going. That I haven't learned how to arrive thing, we should never feel like we have arrived. We had a church, quick story. We had a church that we attended, and this is my friend Jenny's church, her and her husband pastor. And when we came to that church, my husband and I were number 17 and 18 in the congregation. And Louie and Jenny had just come with their 2 kids, so they were the 4 people before us. So before we all came, let's just say that there was only 12 people there. And it was the first time they had a full-time pastor. It was getting really exciting, whatever. And we were able to be part of a really amazing growth movement where we were seeing people come into the church who wanted to be there, who wanted to learn more. And it was just amazing. And all of a sudden, we had outgrown our building. And we had chairs all the way to the back. We had people standing. And we were worried that people weren't going to keep coming because there wasn't any room for them. And we kept looking at other options for buildings and nothing. It was so discouraging in a small town. I mean, you only have so many options. And then the church down the street offered us a ridiculously good deal for the entire contents and their building. It was something on our zero budget because we had all these brand new believers who didn't understand about tithing yet. And so we were trying to support all these people on no money, on the love of Jesus. That was all we had. And so we went forward into this building, and that was our big thing, was we have not arrived, you guys. There is no arrival until we hit the other side. Like, there is no arrival. We keep doing the same things that we've always done. We reach people, we invite people, we love people, we do all of these things. If you have a goal in mind, that's great. Have that goal. That goal is not the end. That goal is just a part on the journey, just like the guy who was a tool salesman. I mean, he had no idea that his magazine publication, the real estate magazine, that wasn't where he'd arrived, right? And because he didn't ever arrive, he went further than he ever thought he would.
Same thing applies. Setting a goal in Plexus.
Absolutely.
Leave that goal as a step, not an arrival. Reaching a rank is not an arrival. It's just a step. And I hear so often from a lot of the diamonds, they're like, well, once I hit the top, it was like, what's next? Well, if that vision and the purpose and everything is greater than just you, then you just go again. I mean, look at Brooke Hemingway. Isn't that crazy? Like, she hasn't arrived. She knows that there's more people to be helped, right? So interesting. I like the bottom of 169. A possibility is a hint from God and one must follow it.
Mm-hmm.
That really stood out to me. If we're really truly showing the possibilities of what Plexus can do for people's lives on a greater scale of just, you know, you'll feel better, which is awesome. But if we're truly looking at the possibilities and what God is giving us, then it can be pretty big, right? It can be the whole thing of working from possibilities instead of circumstances really, really has been big on my radar for the last couple of months, because when you start focusing on possibilities, there's so much more than what circumstances can ever cover. Circumstances don't matter then.
No, absolutely. All right.
Stretching to the end.
Yep.
That baseball player was pretty fabulous.
Mm-hmm. Yep. He never lost that tension.
Keep learning to die.
See, and that was the same as the last chapter, the end of chapter chapter 8 as well, where he's talking about his dad was a golf pro.
Mm-hmm.
And he never stopped. He said he'd stopped teaching when he stopped learning, and he never stopped teaching until he died.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. That's all I got. I mean, we can talk about 172, but we're definitely over time.
We've got little people waiting, so.
Yeah. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining us. And I know Amy doesn't have hers on right now, but I have to thank you guys for having your cameras on, because it's way easier to interact with you guys when you've got your cameras on. We don't care if you're in your jammies or if you got a disaster behind you or whatever. We really appreciate your engagement and your willingness to be vulnerable with us. Thanks for letting me pick on you, Carrie. Yeah, thanks for showing up. This says huge things about your desire to grow. We are not sure what next week looks like because Marge is going to be traveling. I'm still going to be at convention. But we've got 11, 12, and then I think there's 15 chapters. So we may only have like 2 or 3 more weeks.
Ooh, then pick another book.
Mm-hmm. I know, she's been dogging me to find out what book we're doing next. So we'll let you know. We will let you know.
I need to use up my Audible credit. So I need to know which book.
Quickly.
Awesome. That's
fantastic. Thank you guys so much. And yeah, we really appreciate you. Have a great week.